One book, one extraordinary life. 48 chapters of saints, science, and the search for God.
I'm Kai,
And I'm Maya.
and this is our take on Autobiography of a Yogi, chapter by chapter.
A young disciple arrives at a hermitage in Serampore. His guru greets him from a tiger skin on the floor of a balconied sitting room. His voice is cold, his manner unemotional. "You have come." And the disciple kneels, touches the holy feet, and says, "Yes, dear master, I am here to follow you." And then he makes a demand that changes everything.
Chapter 12, Years in My Master's Hermitage. And if the last two chapters were the lightning strike of recognition and the penniless test of faith, this one is the long, slow work of transformation. This is where we learn who Sri Yukteswar actually is, not in a single dramatic moment, but through the daily texture of life together. And this chapter is dense. It covers years of training in a single stretch.
So Mukunda has arrived at the Serampore hermitage 28 days after their meeting in Benares, exactly as Sri Yukteswar predicted. And the first thing that strikes him is the tone, cold, unemotional. This is not the tender man on the balcony overlooking the Ganges who said, "I give you my unconditional love." This is a teacher establishing terms.
And the negotiation that follows is extraordinary. Sri Yukteswar says, "How can that be? You ignore my wishes." Because remember, Mukunda was told to go back to Calcutta, and instead he's shown up at the hermitage. And Mukunda surrenders. "No longer, Guruji. Your wish shall be my law." And Sri Yukteswar's tone shifts immediately. "That is better. Now I can assume responsibility for your life." And Mukunda says, "I willingly transfer the burden, master."
And then the first instruction. "My first request then is that you return home to your family. I want you to enter college in Calcutta. Your education should be continued." And Mukunda hides his consternation. "Very well, sir. Would importunate books pursue him down the years? First father, now Sri Yukteswar."
But then Sri Yukteswar adds something that seems almost offhand. "Someday you will go to the West. Its people will lend ears more receptive to India's ancient wisdom if the strange Hindu teacher has a university degree." At this point in the story, America is a distant abstraction, but Sri Yukteswar is already seeing 20 years into the future and making practical arrangements for it. And Mukunda's gloom departs. "You know best, Guruji." The reference to the West was puzzling, remote, but his opportunity to please Master by obedience was vitally immediate.
"You will be near in Calcutta. Come here whenever you find time." And Mukunda says, "Every day if possible, master. Gratefully I accept your authority in every detail of my life, on one condition. Yes, that you promise to reveal God to me."
And an hour-long verbal tussle ensues. Because a master's word cannot be falsified, it is not lightly given. The implications in that pledge open out vast metaphysical vistas. A guru must be on intimate terms indeed with the Creator before he can obligate him to appear. And Mukunda senses for Yukteswar's divine unity and is determined, as his disciple, to press his advantage.
"You are of exacting disposition." And then master's consent rings out with compassionate finality. "Let your wish be my wish." 5 words. And with them, lifelong shadow lifts from Mukunda's heart. The vague search, hither and yon, is over. He has found eternal shelter in a true guru.
"Come, I will show you the hermitage." Master rises from his tiger mat, and Mukunda's gaze falls with astonishment on a wall picture garlanded with a spray of jasmine, Lahiri Mahasaya, and Sri Yukteswar's tone becomes reverently vibrant. "Yes, my divine guru. Greater he was as man and yogi than any other teacher whose life came within the range of my investigations. The lineage is now visible, Lahiri Mahasaya to Sri Yukteswar to Mukunda. The same Kriya transmission that blessed his father is now flowing directly through his own guru's hands."
And the hermitage itself is described beautifully. Large, ancient, and well-built, surrounded by a massive pillared courtyard. Outer walls were moss-covered. Pigeons fluttered over the flat gray roof, unceremoniously sharing the ashram quarters. A rear garden was pleasant with jackfruit, mango, and plantain trees. Balustraded balconies of upper rooms faced the courtyard from 3 sides. A narrow stairway led to Sri Yukteswar's sitting room, whose small balcony overlooked the street. Everything was simple, clean, and utilitarian.
And that first night, squatting on a straw mat near the tiger skin, the friendly stars very close beyond the balcony, Mukunda asks, "Guruji, please tell me something of your life." And Sri Yukteswar's autobiography is brief to the point of comedy. "My family name was Priyanath Karar. I was born here in Serampore, where father was a wealthy businessman. He left me this ancestral mansion, now my hermitage.
My formal schooling was little. I found it slow and shallow. In early manhood, I undertook the responsibilities of a householder and have one daughter, now married. My middle life was blessed with the guidance of Lahiri Mahasaya. After my wife died, I joined the Swami order and received the new name of Sri Yukteswar Giri. Such are my simple annals.
And Master smiles at Mukunda's eager face. Like all biographical sketches, his words had given the outward facts without revealing the inner Nan. So Mukunda pushes, I would like to hear some stories of your childhood. And Sri Yukteswar's eyes twinkle with his warning. I will tell you a few, each one with a moral.
And the stories are delightful. First, his mother tried to frighten him with a ghost story in a dark chamber. I went there immediately and expressed my disappointment at having missed the ghost. Mother never told me another horror tale. Moral, look fear in the face and it will cease to trouble you.
Second, he desperately wanted an ugly dog belonging to a neighbor, kept his whole household in turmoil for weeks trying to get it. His ears were deaf to offers of pets with more prepossessing appearance. Moral, attachment is blinding. It lends an imaginary halo of attractiveness to the object of desire.
And third, he heard his mother remark occasionally, a man who accepts a job under anyone is a slave. That impression became so indelibly fixed that even after his marriage he refused all positions, meeting expenses by investing his family endowment in land. Moral, good and positive suggestions should instruct the sensitive ears of children. Their early ideas long remain sharply etched. 3 stories, 3 morals. That's Sri Yukteswar's entire teaching method in miniature. Everything is a lesson, and the lesson always comes after the story, never before.
And Sri Yukteswar gives Mukunda his Kriya Yoga initiation the following morning. The technique Mukunda had already received from 2 disciples of Lahiri Mahasaya, his father and his tutor, Swami Kebalananda. But in Master's presence, he feels transforming power. At his touch, a great light breaks upon his being, like glory of countless suns blazing together. A flood of ineffable bliss, overwhelming his heart to an innermost core, continued during the following day. It was late that afternoon before he could bring himself to leave the hermitage.
And as Sri Yukteswar predicted, he returns to Calcutta. And his father is not angry. He's happy. Son, I am happy for us both. You have found your guru, as in miraculous fashion I once found my own. The holy hand of Lahiri Mahasaya is guarding our lives. My prayers have been answered. You have not in your search for God been permanently removed from my sight. And Mukunda climbs to his little attic and bestows affectionate glances on it, as though on a living presence. You have witnessed my meditations and the tears and storms of my sadhana. Now I have reached the harbor of my divine teacher.
So he enrolls at Scottish Church College in Calcutta and begins spending every free moment at the Saranpur Hermitage. And here's where the book shifts into something different. Not dramatic encounters with miracle workers, the quiet daily rhythms of life with a master.
Sri Yukteswar wakes before dawn. Lying down or sometimes sitting on the bed, he enters samadhi. And Mukunda describes how he would know his guru had awakened. First, the abrupt halt of stupendous snores. A sigh or two, perhaps a bodily movement. Then a soundless state of breathlessness. He was in deep yogic joy. Even the transition from sleep to superconsciousness had a physical soundtrack, and Mukunda knew every note.
Then a long morning walk by the Ganges. Those walks with his guru, how real and vivid still, in the easy resurrection of memory. The early sun warming the river. His voice rings out, rich with the authenticity of wisdom. A bath, then the midday meal prepared according to Master's daily directions. Sri Yukteswar was a vegetarian. He ate little, often rice colored with turmeric or juice of beets and spinach, lightly sprinkled with ghee or melted butter. For dessert, mangoes or oranges with rice pudding or jackfruit juice.
And visitors came in the afternoons. A steady stream poured from the world into the hermitage tranquility. Everyone found in Master an equal courtesy and kindness. To a man who has realized himself as a soul, the rest of humanity assumes a striking similarity of aspect. Sri Yukteswar showed no special consideration to those who happened to be powerful or accomplished. Neither did he slight them for their poverty or illiteracy. He would listen respectfully to words of truth from a child and openly ignore a conceited pundit. 8 o'clock was the supper hour, and sometimes found lingering guests. My guru would not excuse himself to eat alone. None left his ashram hungry or dissatisfied. Yet he was economical. Be comfortable within your purse, he often said. Extravagance will buy you discomfort. And quiet evening hours often brought one of his discourses, treasures against time. His every utterance was measured and chiseled by wisdom. The essence of truth came from him like a fragrant exudation of the soul. And here's the thing about Sri Yukteswar that makes him unlike any other teacher in this book. He was reserved and matter-of-fact. There was not of the vague or daft visionary about him. His feet were firm on the earth, his head in the haven of heaven. And he would say, saintliness is not dumbness. Divine perceptions are not incapacitating. The active expression of virtue gives rise to the keenest intelligence.
And then come the stories that show how Sri Yukteswar actually taught, not through lectures, through moments. The mosquito incident is one of my favorites. One night, the insects at the hermitage are especially virulent, but Master doesn't give his usual instruction about the bedtime curtains. Mukunda lies there being devoured, coughing pretentiously to attract attention. No responsive stir from Master. He approaches cautiously. Sri Yukteswar is not breathing, cold and motionless.
His heart must have failed. Mukunda places a mirror under his nose. No breath vapor. To make doubly certain, for minutes he closes his guru's mouth and nostrils with his fingers, body still cold and motionless. In a daze, he turns toward the door to summon help. And then Sri Yukteswar's voice, shaky with laughter. So, a budding experimentalist? My poor nose. And the teaching. Why don't you go to bed? Is the whole world going to change for you? Change yourself. Be rid of the mosquito consciousness.
And Mukunda returns to his bed. Not one insect ventures near. He realizes that his guru had previously agreed to the curtains only to please him. Sri Yukteswar's yogic power was such that he could either will the mosquitoes not to bite or escape to an inner invulnerability. He was giving me a demonstration, Mukunda thinks. That is the yogic state to attain. The superconsciousness, regardless of multitudinous distractions, never absent from this earth.
And then another mosquito teaching. Mukunda is at his guru's feet during a matchless interpretation of the ancient texts. Perfect peace. A rude mosquito enters the idol and drives its needle into his thigh. He automatically raises his hand for the kill, but then remembers Patanjali's yoga aphorism on ahimsa, harmlessness, and stops. And Sri Yukteswar catches the whole sequence. Why didn't you finish the job?
Master, do you advocate taking life? No, but the death blow had already been struck in your mind. And then the real teaching. Patanjali's meaning was the removal of the desire to kill. This world is inconveniently arranged for a literal practice of ahimsa. Man may be compelled to exterminate harmful creatures. He is not under similar compulsion to feel anger or animosity. All forms of life have equal right to the air of Maya.
And then a cobra appears near the Puri hermitage, a 4-foot length of sheer terror, its hood angrily expanded, racing toward them. A disciple named Prafula tells a story. My guru gave a welcoming chuckle as though to a child. I was beside myself with consternation to see Master engage in a rhythmical clapping of hands. He was entertaining the dread visitor. The serpent, very close to his guru, becomes motionless, seemingly magnetized by his caressing attitude. The frightful hood gradually contracts. The snake slithers between Master's feet and disappears into the bushes.
And Sri Yukteswar catches Mukunda's wandering mind during a discourse. You are not here. And Mukunda protests. Guruji, I have not stirred. My eyelids have not moved. I can repeat each word you have uttered. And Sri Yukteswar says, Nevertheless, you are not fully with me. Your objection forces me to remark that in your mental background, you were creating 3 institutions. One was a sylvan retreat on a plain, another on a hilltop, a third by the ocean.
Wait, he read his subconscious thoughts, not his conscious ones. The surface mind was tracking the discourse perfectly, but underneath, in a layer Mukunda himself was barely aware of, he was daydreaming about buildings, and Sri Yukteswar saw all 3. What can I do with such a master who penetrates my random musings? And the guru's reply is perfect. Your architectural dreams will materialize later. Now is the time for study. And decades later, all 3 visions came true exactly as described. A boys' school on a Ranchi plain, American headquarters on a Los Angeles hilltop, and a hermitage by the Pacific.
And Sri Yukteswar heals Mukunda's chronic dyspepsia. One afternoon, his eyes fix piercingly on the young disciple. You are too thin, Mukunda. And Mukunda knows it. His sunken eyes and emaciated appearance were far from his liking. Chronic dyspepsia had pursued him since childhood. His despair had reached an occasional zenith when he asked himself if it were worthwhile to carry on this life with a body so unsound.
And Sri Yukteswar says, medicines have limitations. The creative life force has none. Believe that, you shall be well and strong. And those words arouse a conviction of personally applicable truth, which no other healer, and Mukunda had tried many, had been able to summon within him. Day by day, behold, he waxes. 2 weeks after Master's hidden blessing, he has accumulated the invigorating weight which eluded him in the past. His persistent stomach ailments vanish with a lifelong permanency.
And Sri Yukteswar's teaching style is not gentle. Discipline had not been unknown to Mukunda. At home, father was strict and Ananta often severe. But Sri Yukteswar's training cannot be described as other than drastic. A perfectionist, he is hypercritical of his disciples, whether in matters of moment or in the subtle nuances of behavior. Mukunda's chief offenses: absent-mindedness, intermittent indulgence in sad moods, non-observance of certain rules of etiquette, and occasional unmethodical ways. Good manners without sincerity are like a beautiful dead lady, Sri Yukteswar remarks. Straightforwardness without civility is like a surgeon's knife, effective but unpleasant. Candor with courtesy is helpful and admirable.
And his candor goes far. He tells Mukunda once, "I am hard on those who come for my training. That is my way. Take it or leave it. I will never compromise. But you will be much kinder to your disciples. That is your way. I try to purify only in the fires of severity, searing beyond the average toleration. The gentle approach of love is also transfiguring. You will go to foreign lands where blunt assaults on the ego are not appreciated. A teacher could not spread India's message in the West without an ample fund of accommodative patience and forbearance."
And there's a story about Mukunda's father visiting the hermitage. The parent expected, very likely, to hear some words of praise. Instead, it was Master's practice to recount simple, negligible shortcomings with an air of portentous gravity. Father rushed home to see Mukunda. "From your guru's remarks, I thought to find you a complete wreck." His parent was between tears and laughter.
And Mukunda confronts his guru. "Sir, why did you judge me so mercilessly before my astounded father? Was that just?" And Sri Yukteswar receives him with downcast eyes, as though conscious of guilt. It was the only time Mukunda ever saw the divine lion meek before him. "I will not do it again," Master says, his tone apologetic. And he never does upset Father's peace of mind again. But he relentlessly continues to dissect Mukunda whenever and wherever he chooses.
And Mukunda endures. "If you don't like my words, you are at liberty to leave at any time," Master tells him. "I want nothing from you but your own improvement. Stay only if you feel benefited." And for every humbling blow to his vanity, for every tooth in his metaphorical jaw knocked loose with stunning aim, Mukunda writes that he is grateful beyond any facility of expression. The hard core of human egotism is hardly to be dislodged except rudely. With its departure, the divine finds at last an unobstructed channel.
And here's what I find most remarkable. Others talked of miracles but could manifest nothing. Sri Yukteswar seldom mentioned the subtle laws, but secretly operated them at will. In conversation, he avoided startling references. In action, he was freely expressive. His only marvelous aura was one of perfect simplicity. And he explains why. A man of realization does not perform any miracle until he receives an inward sanction. God does not wish the secrets of his creation revealed promiscuously. Also, every individual in the world has inalienable right to his free will. A saint will not encroach upon that independence.
And the silence habitual to Sri Yukteswar was caused by his deep perceptions of the infinite. No time remained for the interminable revelations that occupy the days of teachers without self-realization. As the Hindu scriptures observe with discerning humor, in shallow men the fish of little thoughts cause much commotion. In oceanic minds the whales of inspiration make hardly a ruffle. Because of his unspectacular guise, only a few of his contemporaries recognized Sri Yukteswar as a superman. Though born a mortal like all others, Master had achieved identity with the ruler of time and space. In his life, Mukunda perceived a godlike unity. He had not found any insurmountable obstacle to mergence of human with divine. That's the portrait of a master. Not someone who performs miracles on demand, but someone who lives so deeply in truth that everything around him rearranges itself. The mosquitoes don't bite, the cobra goes gentle, the dyspepsia of hashes, the buildings come true, not through spectacle, through presence. And Mukunda is learning to see that this is what real power looks like. Next time, a sleepwalking saint, a vision of the Himalayas, and the discovery that the universe has been offering Mukunda far more than he knew how to receive. The journey with Sri Yukteswar is deepening.
The education at Sarapur is just getting started. See you next time.